I don't know why. It was charged, right? Ich weiß nicht. Derweil I see it's okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Good morning, good morning. I called it for 8 because of Kriyas HaTorah here, so it's they finish a few minutes later. But tomorrow, hopefully they'll be done at 7:45. Just Monday and Thursday, they're usually done later. Because Netzach Chama is now pretty late. Okay. So we're in the Maimer of Yehudah Atah, Yeducha Achecha, and Torah Vayechi. The first Maimer in Vayechi. We're holding Ois Dalad, the 4th chapter, the 4th section, the 4th paragraph, which is page 90. Second paragraph on page 90. Ach hine kol gimel b'chinas hanal. In the Hebrew, it's Mem Hey, column 3. Good morning. Okay. Oh, wie weißt du, wenn sie kommen? Interessant. Derweil the green zet me noch. Yeah, no, I see. I'm just... Okay. What? No. I was charging for a few days. Yeah. Okay. I want to welcome the person behind the whole technology here, Rabbi Nochem Fried. It's been a while. Okay, today's class is dedicated by Hayden Hall, La'ilu Nishmas, Reb Shnei Zalman, Ben Reb Gimpel Avram, Zechrona Levracha, Olav Shalom. Thank you very much. Tehei Nishmasa Yitzura B'Tzurah HaChayim. Ve'kitzu v'rananu Sheikh Ne'afar. Amen. Thank you. Achine. Yeah. So after discussing Reuven, Shimon, and Levi in a person's avodah, in the spiritual life and the emotional life of the Jew, the Maimah went through, although briefly, each one of the first 3 sons of Leah, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. And the key point was Reuven, which comes from the word seeing. Reuben, Kira Hashem Ba'anyi. And Shimon, which is associated with the word Shama, Shmiya, Shma, hearing, listening. The ability to hear. Shama Hashem kisnua anoichi. Hashem heard about my pain. And Levi, which comes from the word Leviah, hapam yilove ishi elai. Now my husband will become one with me. My husband will accompany me. My husband will become connected to me. And that's the concept of Levi, Leviah. When you say even, achila shsiya Leviah, there's feeding somebody, there's giving somebody to drink, and then there's Leviah, there's escorting them, accompanying them, which is a form of connection. I don't let you go alone. I want to be with you, physically and emotionally. So apam yilove ishi elai. Now my husband will become attached to me. He will become accompanied to me. He will become connected to me. So it's 3 stages in Avodas Hashem. And it's 3 parts of davening. The first part of davening, which begins with the beginning of davening, Psukei de Zimra, that the Chazal instituted all the way through Vahafta, the first part of Kriyas Shema. And then the second portion of Kriyas Shema corresponds to the Avodah of Shimon, hearing. And then the third section, Emes and Emes V'Yatziv, the bracha afterwards, Emes V'Yatziv V'Nachid V'Kayim, all the way till Shemona Esra, that is the state of consciousness of Levi. As he pointed out, each one is integrated from the other. It's not like they're isolated. In Kedusha, in holiness, there's always hiskalalus. In holiness, it's never one madrega is on its own. In other words, radical, where you are this and the other one is the exact opposite. In Reuven, there's Shimon, and in Shimon, there's Reuven, and in Levi, there's Reuven and Shimon. And the reason is because anything that's connected with the source ultimately is connected to everything else also. That's a very important yesod by the Alter Rebbe. That's hiskalalus. In other words, even though you may be you're connected to one particular characteristic, you're never only connected to one particular characteristic. The question is what's more emphasized, what's less emphasized. But if it's connected to the source, if it's a manifestation of the source, everything is connected to everything. That's called hiskalalus. Everything is integrated. So in the first parsha, Yosef Shimon. And in the second parsha, Yosef Reuven. Because there's always a connection. The question is what's emphasized. I'm just mentioning that because sometimes you say, well, there's no love in the second parsha. There's also love in the second parsha. So he emphasizes that there's always hiskalalus. Hiskalalus means you're never only connected to the prat, you're also always connected to the klal. Prat is the detail, the manifestation. Klal is the koilel, right? The collective, everything. Even when you're in a prat, you're still always connected to the klal. You're never only in a prat. If you're only in a prat, like we say in the morning, in Rabbi Shmuel Leimer, there's klal or prat, there's prat or klal, there's klal, prat or klal. So that's why there's always a skalalus, there's always integration. You understand this, Nakud? I'm just saying it derech hagav, but it's an important point. And what's the difference between the three? So the main point was the first one is associated with love and closeness and connection, and that's always connected with seeing. When you see somebody, you become closer to them. And when you're close to somebody, you want to see them. And really seeing the other person is what ignites and empowers and generates the emotion of love. Hearing is something that I don't see. It's not in front of my eyes. It represents something that's more distant, more abstract. You can hear and think and understand things that are not in front of your eyes. Whether it's a story or it's an idea. A story that may have happened 1,000 years ago or a story that's happening elsewhere. I can't see it with my eyes. There's no intimate connection in the sense that I see it. It's not engraved on the level of seeing. It's something that's more distant, more rachak. In Avodas Hashem, that's the two elements of the relationship. One is, he says, kiruv, and one is richuk. One is the sense of closeness, of attachment. I see you, like the pasuk says, ki b'koira, ki te'ena. Ki b'koira, what was the expression from the Navi, the beautiful pasuk. What is this? I have seen your fathers, your forefathers, like the first fig when it ripes, when it becomes ripe on the tree. A person who's a farmer and wants the fig and craves the fig, and the first fig shows up in the summer season. The first fig shows up. It's a simcha. You see the first fig. That's how I saw your forefathers. So it doesn't mean I saw them. I saw them with my eyes. Seeing is a form of deep affection, of deep connection. I was excited to see them and observe them. And that's what Re'iyah is. And that's why the Chazal instituted the whole structure of davening, as he explained. Not just to say words, and not even to say ideas, but rather as an engagement, as a meditation to really bring a person into an experiential relationship, to be able to gaze at the glory of the Rebbeinu Shalom, like when somebody sees something and they're taken by it, they're swallowed up by it, they're moved by it, they're truly affected by it in a very positive way. Just like seeing negative things can affect you in a very negative way because it's so vivid, it's so real, it's so impressionable. So that's Reuven. And he explained that at length. And that includes also Ra Hashem Ba'anyi, V'haftas B'chol Levavcha, all the parts of your heart, including the parts of your heart that disagree. That's the ba'anyi, the pain, as he went through the whole idea of tshuva, the soul trying to restore itself. Ki Atah yehavani ishi. The second step with Shimon, and Shimon is associated with, when you really, really connect, you also come to learn that there's something that I can't connect to. There's something that is unreachable. And there, this is one of the chidushim in this maimon. It's a very rich and very edel and nekuda. Not like people think that yira is distance. Yira is fear, it's distance, like rejection. Here what he's saying is, yira, awe, is the gift of experiencing that which can't be experienced. That which is really transcendent, that which is really beyond me, which is really above me, you experience it, you have a relationship with it. How do you connect to it? Not through controlling it and mastering it and containing it, because then it's not that. It's the distance, it's the sense of awe and reverence and bittul, what we call yira. That's in a way a much deeper relationship, because it's a relationship with that which I cannot connect to, because it's beyond me. It's beyond me. And it's true in people, as we discussed. In a powerful relationship, there's also the point where you realize that there's a secret to the other person that I can't know, that I can't see. It's something that I can't see. I can hear. And hear means I recognize that there's a distance, there's a boundary, and there's respect for that boundary. And the yira is the way you connect with something that is in a completely different space. It's in a transcendent space. And I acknowledge it, and I embrace it, and I pay tribute to it through yira, through awe. In a way, it's a much deeper relationship than the first relationship. It's expressed in a very different fashion. It's expressed through awe rather than through love, through distance rather than through closeness. But it's not a distance that comes from rejection and negativity. It's a distance that comes because you're actually touching something that is truly elusive, something that is truly beyond me. There's yamin mekareves and smoil doicha. I'm doicha myself. I push myself away. In other words, I recognize that there's something untouchable here. I can't just touch it with my hands. I can't just manipulate it, exploit it, control it, define it, interpret it. There's a sense of yira. Yeah? I'm sorry, what? So where is that expressed in the second portion of Krishma? He says, Hishamru lachem pen yifta levavchem. What does that really mean? It means a person recognizing their vulnerabilities, a person recognizing their weaknesses, a person recognizing their limitations, and a respect for that. A person realizing that with all of my closeness and with all of my attachment, there's also, it's very easy for me to go in another direction. I need boundaries within myself. It's not free for all. I'm not. It's the respect. It's the respect for my weaknesses. It's the respect for the fact that I can be very, very distant. That in a moment, a person could fall from the highest places into the lowest places. That's a certain sobriety. It's a sobriety. One of the dangers in life is, and it's also true in a marriage. What's the problem when you have love without respect? When you have love without respect, ultimately, it's always on my terms. Even if it's very powerful love, there's always I. Respect allows there to be able to create space for the other where I am not present. And that's very important, because a person has situations where you do become distant, where you're not in the best of places. And when there's respect, there's boundaries, there's certain red lines that I don't cross. It protects people in these situations. You understand what I'm saying? A couple comes and says, we love each other forever, forever, forever. Nothing can come in between us. It's beautiful, but something is going to come in between you, maybe. What happens then? If all there is we're one, we're connected, we love each other, it's beautiful, but in a difficult moment, in a challenging moment, so now it all falls apart because I'm not feeling it, I'm not close. Okay, so let's just go different ways. I'm going to do whatever I want, you do whatever you want. What Yira does, there's a respect for the other person. Respect for the other person is respect for you. I'm actually distant. It's a recognition that I can't put my head into this place. There's a space that I can't cross. And what that does is that even if I'm not emotionally capable at the moment, and even if I'm having a hard day, I could still respect something that is sacred. I don't have to always feel it. Ich darf dort nicht sein. You understand what I'm saying? You have to experience this to understand it, but it's pretty simple. It's not so complicated. You see it in Yiddishkeit also. People who have ahava without yira. People who have ahava without yira. It's standing on one leg. A table can't stand on one leg. And it can also be a form of selfishness. Not necessarily selfishness in a bad way that I'm selfish. But by definition, love is about my experience of you. And what if I don't have an experience of you? And what if my experience, I'm having a very bad day? And what if I'm in a bad state? And what if something happens? Yira is not about my experience. It's respect for something that's actually above me, that transcends me. So the expression in Chassidus, Ave in Yiddish, Ave is Geschmacker, aber Yira is Gesinter. The Lubavitcher Rebbe writes in his diary that he heard this from his father-in-law once, and I think on a walk. He said, or at a Verbringen, Ave is Geschmacker, aber Yira is Gesinter. It's a definition. You know? In terms of Geschmack, we know what's Geschmacker. In terms of health, there's something about Yira that's very... Ava could become very hefkedisdik. It could become frivolous. It could become somewhat of anarchy. The ego is very involved, even though it's a good ego. Love is amazing. And you start with love. You start with connection. You don't start with distance. You start with connection, because if you start with distance, as I said last time, you end with distance too. You start with connection. The distance here is deeper than connection. It's not instead of connection. It's deeper. It's the awe that allows you to touch that which is really beyond. And that's what real respect is. And in Ein Sof, that's the step 2. That's Shimon. Shama Hashem ki snua noichi. And when there's that sense of snua noichi, it doesn't mean I'm hated, I'm a nobody, I'm a bad, evil person. Snua noichi means I realize that there are parts of me that are inadequate, that are not capable of grasping. So Shama Hashem, that gives me a gift of Shmiyah. It's the gift of Yira. Yira is a gift. Why is it a gift? Because it allows you to touch the untouchable. In a relationship, it's also, as much as we're close, there's also a loneliness. Not a loneliness in a bad way, because you don't want to listen to me, because you want to run away from me. We're not talking about that. Obviously, that could be part of a reality, but here it's a loneliness. Vayechi Yaakov levadai. There's a loneliness in the sense that there's a secret that is yours. There's a certain authenticity that is yours and yours alone, and a person has to pay tribute to it. And if you're in a relationship with somebody, they have to pay tribute to it. And it's not something I want to conquer and I want to take you out of, and I want to say, come on, get out of your isolation. This is not an isolation that's evil, that we want to overcome. It's an isolation that's a blessing, because there's a certain nikuda in you that reflects on Ein Sof that's yours. And how do I connect to that? I connect to that by not connecting to it. What do I mean by not connecting to it? By respecting it, by looking at it from a distance, by not looking at it. Sometimes you have to turn your face away. Sometimes you connect to something by not connecting to it. You know what I mean? It's an inyan of Yehudah. In our generation, a lot of people became cynical about a lot of things, including this inyan. In other words, when we see the concept of Yehudah, of fear, it's because the person surrounds himself with a mafia. So therefore, right, you're scared. Don't start up with me. I'm more powerful than you. The system is going to eat you up and crush you. So that's nothing to do with this inyan. So the concept of Yira we seem as very dysfunctional and abusive, but the truth is that Yira is a very, very deep gift. There's a vart, it says in Pirkei Avos, Moira Rabach should be Kamoira Shamayim. The fear, the Moira of your Rebbe should be Kamoira Shamayim, like the fear of heaven. So how is that translated usually? You should fear your Rebbe like you fear God. So people say, really? I should fear him like I fear God. And the Gabbai, I should fear like whom? His Gabbai, I should even fear more than him because he has more power than him. The Gabbai makes the decisions. There's a vart, I don't remember if it's a Rabbi, it comes from one of the tzaddikim in Poland. He said it's not a commandment, it's a prediction. You're going to fear your Rebbe as much as he fears God. You hear? Moira Rabach is going to be K'moira Shamayim. As much as he has Yira Shamayim, that's how much Yira you'll have from him. In other words, it's a mirror. The awe that he has from heaven, that will be reflected in the awe that you have from him. The Gemara says in Kedushin, Rabbi Akiva said, "Es Hashem Elokecha Tira." Why does it say es? Es Hashem Elokecha Tira. LeRabbi is Talmidei Chachamim. That the Yiras Hashem is also from Talmidei Chachamim. So the Kotzker Rebbe said, what does it mean? Es Hashem Elokecha Tira, LeRabbi is Talmidei Chachamim. Even Talmidei Chachamim have to fear God. LeRabbi is Talmidei Chachamim. That's classic, the Kotzker Rebbe. Even if you're Talmid Chacham, you still have to have Yiras Shamayim. It's a beautiful line. What is he really saying? The concept of a real Talmid Chacham is somebody who has real Yiras Hashem. That Yiras Hashem is reflected in your emotions towards that person. To put it differently, if you're fearing somebody because they're a somebody, then don't fear them. Maybe stay away from them, but don't fear them. The real Yira that we're talking about is the Yira because there is an infinity there. Infinity is not abuse. Infinity is awe-inspiring. It's awe-inspiring. It's a whole different inyan. You can't love it, not because you don't want to love it. Of course you love it, but because love is too small to be able to grasp it. Love is something I grasp with my emotions. I love you. I love you. It's amazing words, but it begins with I. I love you. I'm experiencing you. And here you know that I'm not experiencing you. So silence is a much more appropriate relationship. This is the richness of this Maimer when he describes the second level, that it's deeper than Reuven. And that's why Re'iyah creates Yira, but it's a different level of Yiriyah. Vayara vayanu vayamdu meirachik. After Matan Torah, by Matan Torah, they went to the distance. They stood from a distance. Matan Torah was the greatest revelation. There was never a revelation like Matan Torah. What was the result? Vayamdu meirachik. They said, I have to move back.
Could this be like taking a ship, like the Holocaust? You can't go there sometimes. You can't understand.
That's another side to it. It's right. When you see the suffering in the world, things like a Holocaust, right? And I should say it's not just a Holocaust. If one child is killed in an accident, right? If God is, if you say, if somebody says, this person is a nice person, 6 million he won't kill, but one child he'll murder. It doesn't work that way, you understand? So the question on God is not a question on the 6 million. The letter from the Lubavitch Rebbe to Eli Wiesel, it's like a 7-page letter. Eli Wiesel was in Auschwitz and Buchenwald, and he lost a lot of his, he struggled tremendously. He came from a Chassidus family, Vizhnitz. He grew up in Sighet, and he lost his family. He grew up in there was a Vizhnitz. He considered himself a Vizhnitz Chassid. So so there's a 7-page letter. It's printed from the Lubavitch Rebbe to Eli Wiesel. So he says this point in the middle of the letter. He says, any serious person had the question of Auschwitz many years before Auschwitz. Because if God is just and kind, so one child dying in a car accident is that I'm fine with. Obviously, big numbers, affect us in different ways. That's obvious. But in terms of the MS of the question, How can a good God allow this in the world? That's a question about a single child suffering. So he said that the real Jew who asked real questions had to ask the question a lot before 1939. Especially Jewish history. Then he told Elie Wiesel, the Chiddush of 1939 was, who did it? In previous times, it was usually barbarians who murdered. And here, the sadistic barbarity came from the nation that had the most PhDs, the greatest amount of scientists and doctors and musicians and poets and philosophers, the most cultured nation on earth. He says, that's the Chiddush of 1939, which actually tells you what enlightenment without God did to humanity. It was a brilliant letter to Elie Wiesel. But my point is, you're right, there's also an element of awe over there. I really don't understand. I don't understand. Exactly. That's I think part of awe. Oh, now it's green. Now it's red. Okay. So, what did I want to say to you? Oh, he writes to Elie Wiesel, just a line. He says, Avram and Moshe and Yirmiyah and Eov and all these people who screamed, and David HaMelech, their screaming didn't weaken their emunah. It made it stronger. It's an issue with the mic goes on and off, on and off. Goes on and off, on and off. Okay, we'll see in a few moments. Yeshakayach. Sometimes a battery has arichas yamim and vayigva vayasef alamav. Okay, to all those who are online, our battery was malfunctioning, but looks like it's good. Thank you, Reb Nachum. So, everybody's clapping. I want everybody to realize you're clapping for your wives, not for yourself, right? So it's a beautiful madrega. Reuven and Shimon together. So he says, because if the question of Lama Harei Isa, why are you allowing this, is real, it's not a small question. It's an infinite question. Why is it an infinite question? Because they cared about life and goodness. And they didn't care about it because of rationality. In other words, mathematically, 2 + 2 = 4. Mathematically, it makes sense that children should grow up with parents and without abuse. That children should be allowed to live a long life. That people shouldn't suffer. It makes sense, right? From mathematics, you don't get so upset. The question came from the essence of their soul, because for them, goodness and kindness and compassion, they felt was rooted, not just that it's intellectually logical. Intellectually, you can argue both ways. Who knows what's good? It's because they felt that goodness comes from a source that's beyond rationality, and therefore it touched them in their deepest place. If that's the case, so when they said, and now we don't understand, that was precisely the result of a question coming from a place that's deeper than understanding. I don't just want people to live because it makes sense to me, but it was rather rooted and touched them in their deepest place beyond their rationality. So then they right away said, and if that's the case, we understand that our minds simply are not capable of defining this, of defining purpose, meaning, justification. It's not something that lends itself to the world of rationalization. You're forcing a circle, you're forcing the square into the circle, you're forcing something infinite into a finite box of the human brain. It's not that there's no question, not that it's not painful, but they realize that you're dealing with something that's truly infinite. So I think it's connected from another angle. But in every relationship, even in the positive aspects of a relationship, there's that which I don't know. And that's why you'll see in every very good relationship, there's an element of awe. There's an element of yira. Yira doesn't mean I'm afraid of you, you're going to punish me. I'm afraid of you because I'm intimidated by you. I'm afraid of you because you're neurotic. I'm afraid of you because you're a control freak. I'm afraid of you because if I do anything wrong, you're going to explode. Those are fears that exist in relationships, trust me. And they're serious. People shrink. Sometimes kids and spouse, they come to a home and they shrink. Their heart, they're almost expecting, an avalanche of criticism. And if you grew up like that, if every day when you came home, right, you were told what a goylem you are and what an idiot you are, often people play that out throughout their whole life. That's a yira that makes you say, I don't want to ever see you again in my life. I wish you died and I don't want to see you again. Right? That's not an ennobling yira. That's a yira because there's a terrorist, because there's an oppressor, there's an abuser. Here the yira is a deeper form of closeness. It's a deeper form of a relationship. I'll tell you from my experience, when I grew up, there was a very interesting debate that I grew up with, as a boy and as a bacher especially. And it was a very genuine debate. And there was not an element of dysfunction in it. I still think about it and I get emotional just about the debate. There was a mashpia, his name was Reb Nissen Nemenov. Reb Nissen Nemenov was an old chassid. He had a yeshiva in Brinois. Brinois is a suburb of Paris. He had a yeshiva there for many, many years, since the 1940s, till his death. It still exists, a yeshiva in Brinois. It's a very good yeshiva. And he would come to New York once a year, twice a year, a few times a year. He once came, and he would fabreng with the bachrim. And he says to the Bachim in Yiddish, he says, ich verstehe ich nicht. Der Rebbe kommt raus zum Davenen und steht alle also. Wie schämt sich nicht zu gucken auf Rebbens Ponem? Und soll sein Eier Ponem. Wie schämt sich nicht? Als der Rebbe kommt auf den Antläufen. How you're not embarrassed? The Rebbe comes out to daven, comes out, and you're standing there. He sees you, you see him. He sees everything that's going on in you. You look. How you're not embarrassed to look at his face and to have him say, he says, "I never heard of such a thing." And the whole night he was telling the bachram, the grubkeit, the coarseness that they have to look at the Rebbe's face and to let the Rebbe look at their face. That was his. The next night was somebody else verbringt. And he said, yeah, you have to show up and let the Rebbe see everything. That's a relationship. Let him see everything. Let him see everything. Of course you're not supposed to be there. Let him see that too. You don't run away. You don't run away. It was such a edel debate. And there were two different types of bachram. Some ran, most of them, and some stayed. But such a sensitive. What was he saying? He was saying, Yid is of course you should go away. There was a Yid I knew. His name was Zalman the Shikr. Zalman the Shikr was a very intelligent person. Unfortunately, he became an alcoholic. He was a Baal Tshuva. He wrote songs in the 1960s, and he would get royalties for them. So he would actually get money, but he became a drunk. But he was a very deep guy. He would sit and drink on the island of Eastern Parkway and lie on the bench with a bottle of Crown Royal. And he was a very interesting Yid. I used to speak to him sometimes. I told you once something he told me. It says in the beginning of the Torah, Bereshis bara. So Rashi says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, lo hayat tzarich lahaschel. So he said, the pshat is, the Torah says, Bereshis bara, Hashem created the world. So Rashi says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, lo hayat tzarich. There was no need for this. This was a bad move. Lo hayat tzarich. Trust me. This is a real shikr, you know. Lo hayat tzarich. Anyway, so I noticed the Rebbe would come down to daven every morning. The early years he would daven himself, but later years he would daven every morning with a minyan. When he came down, Zalman the Shikr was there in shul. He would come to put on tefillin, and he would always turn around, about face. He would turn around that his back was to the Rebbe when the Rebbe came in. I saw this a few times. I went over to him once, and I said, "Why do you turn around your back to the Rebbe when he comes into shul?" Everybody turns towards it. So he looks at me and he says, Yosef Yitzchak, ich mit mein chazerischem Ponnen soll gucken auf den Rebbe? Well, me with my face, I should look at the Rebbe. So I said, yeah, Efshe wird es helfen, maybe he'll help you. So he tells me, ich bin nicht gewesen im Mikveh. I didn't go to the mikveh. I don't understand what you're thinking about. So I say, so go to the mikveh. There's a mikveh in the corner. Go to the mikveh. He looks at me. Und as me geht in mikveh, kann ich ja gucken auf den Rebbe. And if I go to the mikveh, I could. I was pretty stunned. And then he says, Amol hab ich geguckt auf den Rebbe. Heid kenn ich nicht. I used to look. Today I don't look. I was quite shocked to hear this from him. My point in all of these anecdotes are, there's two types of yira. There's a yira that comes from real distance, and there's a yira that is a gift that allows you to bridge a distance through awe. It's the appropriate keli. Now, if you didn't have that type of yira, it becomes cynical. Oh, you're scared because control, because of negativity. We're not. That's why I'm making this qualifier. It has to be very real. It can't come from a place of intimidation. If it's intimidation, it's not Ein Sof. If it's intimidation, it's the opposite of Ein Sof. If I have to intimidate you, it's because I'm not infinite. It's because you're a threat to me. You understand? This is a different Inyan. It's the presence of something. I think they say from one of the writers, I don't know who wrote it, he said that when God created the Grand Canyon, he did not create the adjectives with which to describe it. Right? I don't have the adjectives. So if you don't have the adjectives, what do? You're silent. Vayidoim Aaron. You're silent. Why? Not because you're stupid, but because you're smart. Not because you're stupid, because you're smart. Certain situations, I'm getting lost in Shimon here a little bit. Okay. That's what you told me on Shabbos, that Alter Rebbe got lost in Reuven and I got lost in Shimon. The reason I'm getting lost in Shimon is because Yireh got very bad rap in our generation. You understand? Everything became love, 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 which is beautiful. And Yireh became associated with people who want to control everybody else. They just want to scare the living daylights out of you, which I understand. But this Maimer can help us reclaim real Yireh. Real Yehudah, real authentic Yehudah. That's Shimon. It's even higher than Reuven. And as I said, it's not just in relation to somebody else, also in relation to you. It's in relation to you, a respect for your own authentic loneliness, for your own, not the word is not lonely, for your own authentic originality that is uniquely yours. Every person has their own imprint of Hashem. It's something that's yours. And we have to be able to respect that. Respect it in somebody else and respect it in yourself. And as somebody pointed out in the last year, it's not that a relationship takes this away. You know what a good relationship does? It makes this stronger. Without a good relationship, you think your loneliness is coming from where? Because you don't have a friend in the world. With a real relationship, you realize your loneliness is not coming because you don't have a friend. It's coming because there is something inside of you that is yours alone. It's not because I don't have a friend, because I'm a loser, because nobody likes me. This comes from a real relationship. From a good and powerful relationship, you come to realize, wow, we're so close, and yet. You understand? When there's a good relationship, then you have this, much more. Because then it's not, I'm just a traumatized victim, I'm messed up, I don't trust the world. No, I trust the world, I trust people. But there's something, there's something that's a secret, there's something that's not approachable. And that helps you heal. It helps you heal also from loneliness, because it tells you that loneliness is not a curse. Loneliness is a curse if there's no love. But if there is love, it's not a curse. It's a unique strength. It's a reality. I'm sorry, what?
Are you talking about friendship in a relationship with a wife, or friendship in general? Because a wife can be a partner, or a friend, or a lover, but friendship is a friendship.
Yeah, I think it's in all relationships. It's just marriage really brings a relationship to a level that's not like any other relationship. When you have a relationship with a friend, you could take vacation a couple of months. A marriage really challenges a relationship because wir sitzt auf dem Kopf 24 Stunden Tag. The connection is so deep that if it's not worked out, you're not in the mood of your friend, right? So you don't talk to him for 3 weeks. What are you going to do with your spouse? Not talk to him for 3 weeks? You have to work it out. So a marriage, why did God make marriage? Because it challenges us like no other relationship.
Many marriages that they don't talk for life.
You're saying good marriages.
Good marriages, marriages.
You're right. There are marriages where they never talk, and they just right. They talk about the groceries. You're right.
How does it work by self?
I think with self also, we sometimes have to. Yeah, I think it's respecting a part of you that is you. Almost, I also don't understand it always. I also can't understand it. We always think that if we don't understand something, it doesn't exist or it's messed up. It's not. The deepest parts you don't understand. The brain is not a keli to control it, to grasp it. It's true in another person. It's also true in myself. If I respect it in myself, I can respect it in another person. If I don't respect it in myself, I can't respect the secret inside of you. But this is worked out, because if I'm angry at you or at myself and I'm frustrated with you and there's a lot of negativity, then I can't even go here. It's just, there's too much negativity mixed in. There has to be a lot of clarity, I have to be worked out. If I'm just angry at you and frustrated and judging you and you're driving me crazy, there's no distance and closeness. I don't even know what's what. I'm trying to survive here. This is not a survival mimer. This is an expensive mimer. If I'm in a survival mode, I don't see you, I don't hear you, I'm just trying to survive. Ja, du willst etwas sagen? Silence. You're smart. Okay, I should also do the same thing, but I guess somebody has to talk, right?
So Rabbi, what is it?
Oh, you came to the rescue. I don't have to talk, yeah?
I was asking before about doing this with one's self, and your response is that there's a secret in me that
Yeah.
I do accept, and in others. And is that sort of to say a portal?
Yeah.
If we have that silence, then that's a way to access
Yeah.
that otherness.
Yeah.
That represents something that
Yeah.
we can't grasp. Is that
Right.
fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very deep place. It's a very genuine place. Now, trauma abuses that place, because trauma says, I'm alone because I'm messed up. That's not the truth. You're alone because you're godly. You're divine. God is also alone. If I went through trauma, it plays with that, because it says, oh, I'm messed up. If you could bring back your aloneness to your true aloneness, that's very healing. It's not an aloneness because you don't like me and because when I was 4 years old you made me feel like a piece of garbage, which now becomes the definition of my aloneness. But it rather becomes an empowering element. Or to put it differently, why do we get traumatized? This is important. Because we have something that belongs to us. We have an I that's very real. And it's mine. There's something that got ruined here. If there was no such a thing, trauma is my defense mechanisms saying I need to protect something that's worth protecting. In other words, the very fact that this happens to us is because I'm not a machine. Because I'm not just nothing. I'm not just connected to everything. Because there's something very, very real here that got hurt. That's what you want to connect to. The reason I went through this is because I was trying to protect something that is very, very genuine, that is very real. So from the pain itself, you can come back to the healing of that pain. What is that you were trying to protect? There was something very sacred, very divine, very special. Unfortunately, you didn't have the tools and the resources at that age to be able to put it this way. To be able to say, because my dignity is infinite, therefore, I'm going into exile, I'm going into hiding. I don't do it that way. I just go into hiding, and now I'm, 40 years later, I'm just a people's pleaser, a shmata, and a worthless doormat. But really what's happening is, there's something to ruin, because there's something very sacred that can get ruined. And because there's something very sacred that can get ruined, that's the way of saying, I'm not going to let it get ruined permanently. Because at its core, it can't get ruined. But in my perception of it, it could get ruined. Does this make any sense? You have to recognize that, yeah. That's the shimon in yourself. That's the shimon. You need to respect that. It's not just you're a damaged guy. You happen to grow up in a dysfunctional place. Somebody did X, Y, Z, so you're just damaged, and that's it. Good luck. Try to use whatever healing you can. It's much deeper than that. You know why you're damaged? Because there was something very powerful that was played with that is divine. It resonates what I'm saying.
Deeper you are,
Huh?
deeper you are.
And the deeper you are, the more trauma. Exactly. The more I, the more beauty in that I, the more was at stake. The more it took in the message of negativity, the more it was crushed. From the Yehudah, in Chassidus it always says, from the Kol HaGavoya, the Alter Rebbe has an expression, Kol HaGavoya, Gavoya b'yoser, Yored lamata, mata b'yoser. Whatever is higher falls much lower. He says when a wall falls, right, the top of the wall is much further than the bottom of the wall. The lowest stones on the wall are right there. The top stones can fall who knows how far. And if it's hurled, if it's thrown, so the higher it is, the much further it falls. And the more it breaks. So you could look at the brokenness and say, wow, you're messed up. Or you could say, 1 second, what was broken? What was broken? Something that was so deep, it was so heavily broken. So from this very notion, you can reclaim the power of it. And maybe this is one of the very important messages in approaching the healing for it. Because if that really exists, then nobody can approach it. The abuser also can't approach it. So what he did was he blocked your message. He tainted my perception of I. But that I is a secret even to me. So this is where you have to practice Shimon. When I was 4 years old, or 2 years old, or 1 year old, or 6 years old, whatever the age is, my definition of self wasn't my definition of self. It was my definition of self. The real self remains untouchable, not only by that guy, by me too. So when I decided that I'm worthless, it was my decision that I'm worthless. That's it. It was a decision. It affected me. I'm not minimizing this decision. It affects a whole life. But I have to be able to say it has nothing to do with the reality of who I am. Nothing. That's unapproachable. That always deserved yira. Yira even for me. Respect it. It's there. I find this to be an incredibly healing and powerful idea. I need to hear the feedback from the therapists here. Was sagst du? Huh? Moshe Zev, was sagst du? But it's MS, yeah? This is what you were saying Friday, no? Is this what you were saying Friday, or huh?
No conscious solution. As a theory, it's Amos, but by person, since when he was 4 years old, it wasn't emotional damage. I'm sorry, it was rational damage, it's emotional damage.
You're right, pre-verbal.
Fix it. Emotional damage is irrational.
You're right, you're right.
It's Amos, but it's never going to help
You're
you.
right.
It can help you to sell client come next week, but it's never
So you're suggesting psychedelics.
more things than psychedelics.
What else? Hypnosis, what else?
A bunch of things. I just said what you just said doesn't work.
Right. But what are the other things? You're a therapist, what are the other things?
Hypnosis,
Hypnosis,
some legal psychedelics,
legal psychedelics, EFT.
typing,
Yeah.
there's breathing.
Breathing.
I'm not saying that
I got it. Your point is that the rational discussion of this is not going to,
it's going to feel like, oh yes, keep talking,
it's not going to heal
touching something.
the nervous system.
Yeah, and I'm going to come back to it.
I understand. It's not going to heal the body and the nervous system that doesn't even have a conscious memory of it. And it's a pre-verbal experience that will not be extricated through a rational lecture by Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson or a therapist.
What it would do, Rabbi, it would awaken that, you know what, there's a possibility of healing.
Right.
Possibility, but
Number one, it awakens a possibility. And number two, even when we employ various methods of healing, the key is integration. And integration must happen through words. Huh? You heard what I just said? Even if I go through the most incredible experience of healing that allows me to go to the pre-verbal place and almost see the hole, the wound, right? I'm coming back to my day-to-day life, and I have to bring the Oiris into Caleb. I have to bring it into integration. I can't always be in a super conscious state, unless I want to be like Nadav and Avihu and fly away, or like Ben Azai or Ben Zayma, who went into the garden and they never came back, or Elisha ben Avuya. But Rabbi Akiva says you have to come back. So when I'm coming back, we need the words to link the ultimate truth to our reality, which does focus on structured pictures and words. You understand what I'm saying? That's what these Maimarim are. These Maimarim are the link between the superconscious, but always back into the conscious. That's what I feel.
There has to start. There has to be an idea, a concept, and then bring it into the heart. And
No, his point is well taken. Concepts don't heal people. There are people who have been in therapy for 25 years. They paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they weren't lying. They didn't waste their time. They spoke and spoke and spoke, and every Tuesday they came in at 4 o'clock, and the therapist looked them in the eyes and said, "What's going on?" And they spoke for the next hour, right? And they challenged themselves. But 25 years later, they gained a lot of awareness. They're good people. They're aware of a lot going on. But sometimes the key wounds, they don't have any awareness of. They don't have any awareness of it. And even if they do have some level of awareness, sometimes the biggest part of the story they're unaware of. And even if they do have some level of awareness, they almost have no way of grasping it, of going there. And the reason is because words, right? In halacha, I always say this, in halacha there's an unbelievable idea. Kiboiloi, kach poltoi. In kashrus, the way the flavor gets absorbed, that's how it gets emitted. Right? If I used a cold cup for non-kosher wine, it's not absorbed so deeply because the wine was cold. So I rinse out the cup with cold water. But if it's a pot and I cooked treifa meat in the pot and it was in hot water on the fire, the flavor gets absorbed. I can't just rinse it out because the flavor is not coming out from cold water. So now you have to do what we call kashering, hagola. You have to fill it up with hot water. Why is that in halacha that way? Everything in halacha we learned previous to the Maimer comes from the Chachma Vein Soif, because the whole world works that way. Whatever you take in, it's going to go out the same way it went in. If I took in abuse through words, I already had an established identity, and then somebody said something or did something, and I absorbed the negativity through words and ideas. So words and ideas could take it out. Good words, good ideas. But if it came in a way that was pre-verbal, and never mind if I wasn't 5 years old, so there may not even be a memory, and there's no words, b'chlal, and it's before my eye was formed, so my very eye, you understand what happened? My very eye is defined by the trauma. So now you'll explain beautiful concepts, and an adult, it's not touching that nekuda. The keboile kach poltoi is a very important thing. Am I explaining what you're saying correctly? Not really.
Let's make it. I'm not teaching Chassidus.
Finish, and I shouldn't teach?
You got it.
Okay.
You actually said something primarily that I never thought about. What you said, that if there is no trauma, there is no identity. So you see today, their AI doesn't have a trauma.
Right.
They don't have a trauma.
Excellent.
Questions.
Excellent.
And
And even if you tell them you're a loser and you're driving me crazy, there's no trauma in artificial intelligence because they don't have a soul. Very good. That's the price of having a soul. Yeah. We extol AI because they have no trauma. They never become insecure. They never get insulted. When they don't have answers, they don't get upset with themselves. You can't abuse AI. The reason you can't abuse AI because there's no I. There's AI.
On the other hand, Rabbi, if you program AI to begin with,
That's true. It won't go out.
Won't go out. Same thing if it does. If somebody's hurt as a little kid, he lives with that just as they are.
You say there is no the I, there is an AI.
There's AI. It's AI. It's not the I. Hey, the I, but I hayidiyah. It's AI. It's an I that's a product of our creations. Yesh miyesh. The human I, the human soul, is the I. What do we mean? It's the I. It's a derivative of the consciousness of Ein Sof. That's why it could be so damaged. There's a cheftza, there's a gavra that you can traumatize. There's something that as a child I had to protect. And I went to crazy extremes and lengths to protect it, which is what children do. People marvel at the brilliance of a brain to survive. Right? Yeah. I know somebody, some of the closest people in his life did terrible, terrible things to him as a very young child. He had no memory of it. And throughout his life, he discovered much later that his brain went to unbelievable lengths to maintain that his father was a tzaddik, his brother was a tzaddik, even though what they did was unforgivable. And all of his dysfunction, he completely blamed himself for, because for the brain, it's so important for him to be able to say, I had a father, I had a mother, I had brothers, I had sisters, I had a good family. The attachment is so important that the brain was ready to put him into, make him the villain, him the Meshugana, him the Rasha, and take away the memory from the figures that would be a source of attachment. It's unbelievable what the brain does. The brain will turn you into a piece of nothing, will make you not trust anything about you, just to be able to create some system that it feels will help you survive. It will take you and put you into an exile and not let you get out of your closet for 60 years, and everything you do, think, and say is based on what you think people want to hear, because that's the only thing that counts, because in the brain, that's survival. So most people say that's how meshuggah the brain is, evolution. It'll do anything to survive. What Alter Rebbe is teaching us is no. No. The brain is protecting the most genuine thing in you in the best way it knows how to. It doesn't have a better way, unfortunately, right? But it almost makes sure that the core of the I will be untouchable. Not only by other people, even by you. And I think this is a nakuda we often don't realize. People say, why did I have to live with a lie for 45 years about who I am, or 50 years who I am? That lie is painful, but it also saved you, because it kept the real I immune, not only from the abuser, but even from your own abuse. Imagine if you would have the right to manipulate your I with your ideas. Then you would have to be a traumatized victim. But because the Ein Sof in you is something that's untouchable even by you, so all my perceptions of me that define my life really don't touch the core. And when God helps me, and that day I open up and I come out of prison, right? And the mimer goes into the Beiner and I open up, it's as though nothing ever happened. You're the freest person in the world. What did happen is, all the darkness now becomes part of your light. That can only happen because it was untouchable, even by you. And I have to respect that. And the depth of the trauma is only because the brain knows exactly what it's dealing with. It says this we have to protect. Artificial intelligence doesn't have that I, it doesn't have that trauma. People think that trauma shows how vulnerable we are, how weak we are, how frail we are. And it's true. You take a 3-year-old innocent kid, right? And yelling or screaming or other stuff, and then it ruins a whole life. He can't be in a relationship, can't trust himself, and all the other factors. So what is it? It's like it's mazel. You ended up in a dysfunctional house or in a dysfunctional connection with somebody, and I'm sorry, and all we can do is be empathetic and be nice and be kind. But what Chassidus teaches is the very reason that it could have happened is because of how powerful you are. Yeah? The Olam is with me here? Some people commit suicide, yeah. Some people become drug addicts. Some people can't survive. They have nervous breakdowns.
That's the way of the brain trying to protect them.
Yeah. Today there are those who argue. Bessel van der Kolk told me when I had an interview with him that it seems to him from his research that it's possible that we're going to figure out that many mental illnesses are not chemical imbalances. They become chemical imbalances. They originate in trauma. Now, what does that mean? That means that somebody having psychosis or somebody having bipolar mania, right? Today he's Mashiach, tomorrow he's the Satan, right? What is it? It's that the trauma was so deep that I had to create a cover-up of psychosis. That means it's not even chemical. It began with trauma. Now, that's very promising also, because that means that when we're Megala, the Elikus inside of us, we can heal that. So it's very promising. That's why it's all part of Torah Sagula. It's not just your personality disorder, you're just sick, let's give you medication. Sometimes you need medication, and medication could save lives. The chemical part is very important, but I'm just saying there's a whole deeper, soulful explanation here that most people don't even know about. Now, at some point, I may not be able to deal with it. If a person wants to jump off a roof, I have to deal with it. So we have to, be very respectful to where a person is. But this is what he told me. That's pretty revolutionary. There's a tape I once heard, the Pnei Menachem of Ger, the Ger Rebbe, the Pinchas Menachem Alter. That's Reb Shaul Alter's father, the Pnei Menachem. This was 1942 or 43. I think Dalet Iyar, Tov Shemem Gimel, 1980. He came to a visit to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and they spoke about the Rambam's Hilchas Deis, all his healing methods. The Rambam. It was a fascinating discussion. The Rambam gives a few chapters of how you should live, how you should eat, what you should eat, sleep, go to the bathroom, and he says, whoever does this, I guarantee you that unless you were born with an illness or you had an accident, you will not experience illness until you're ready to die. Ani Orev, I guarantee you. And the question is, the Rambam wrote a sefer of halacha. It's not like Gemara where you have stories. How can the Rambam write this in halacha when many of these remedies he knew wouldn't apply in other generations? Some of them already applied in previous generations. Halacha is something that's constant, and these were things that are very relevant. Anyway, they had this whole conversation, very interesting conversation about all the remedies of the Rambam. So the Rebbe told Reb Pinchas Menachem a line there. He said that all chayli haguf is rooted in chayli hanefesh. Everything in this physical world begins in the spiritual world. There's nothing that doesn't begin in the spiritual world. The question is how we relate to it. But there's always something, there's a disruption in the spiritual energy that is then manifested in the body. It doesn't mean the body is not sick. We're not saying that. It means that illness could be studied on many different levels, right? Take Dr. Sarna, whatever your opinion about Dr. Sarna and back pain, right? What is that? What happened? You know the story with Dr. Sarna, huh? It's a crazy story. Dr. Sarna was a surgeon, I believe, in NYU. Where was he? In NYU? You went to him. No, where was he? In NYU? Columbia, one of the big hospitals in Manhattan. He performed back surgeries on thousands and thousands and thousands of people, I think over 30 or 40 years. A regular doctor, surgeon, conventional Western doctor, no shtick, no mind games. Yeah. Medicine. Yeah. He learned. He was a Jewish guy. He passed away a few years ago, at the age of 82, 83. This is Dr. Sarna. What did he learn? Almost half of his patients came back sometime later with the same symptoms that he himself fixed. The same symptoms, the same pain. He fixed it. What did he realize? It wasn't about that. The body was trying to protect something that the person wasn't ready to deal with. And he developed a whole new theory about back pain. Now, a lot of people like to make fun of it. People make fun of it, but whatever. I'm not getting into the details. Most people who make fun of it didn't study it well. But the point is, what's the point? You could look at something on many different levels, and it's true. There's something in my back that is really malfunctioning. And it's true. The body and the soul are so close. They're so one that the soul affects the body affects the soul. When people say it's ridiculous, it's just a physical condition, it's not because they're really disproving this truth. It's because they don't understand how much the mind and the body are one. Al pi Chassidus, Ruchnius and Gashmius are really the same thing. It's just the glasses you have. It's the same thing. The body is not some shmat. The body is not a dead machine. The body is a lakus. The body knows everything. So he told the Pinchas ben Achem, every illness in the body, you can also see it on a higher level. And then it evolves. It evolves. Now that's an unbelievable idea. Because that means the ultimate medicine is, if we could really heal spiritually, everything heals. And it's not to take away the value of medicine and antibiotic and surgery and medication when you need it. Of course, we know that it's a lifesaver, but don't limit yourself to it. Whenever I hear people, they just make fun of anything in the mind with the cynicism, it's not coming from intelligence, it comes from arrogance. A real doctor is open. If I ever hear a doctor say, everything there is to know about medicine, I know. You don't go to such a doctor. Just like if I hear a rabbi say, everything there is to know about God, truth, and Judaism, I know. Don't go to such a rabbi. And if a therapist tells you, everything there is to know about the brain and emotions, I know. Don't go to such a therapist. Mr. Engel and Mr. Lamb don't talk that way. They usually say, everything there is to know about the brain and the soul, I don't know. I'll try. That's a much better attitude, right? Whenever you hear this vanity, this arrogance, it's something off about it. You could say, we don't know, I have to explore. People make fun. Why are you making fun? Learn about it. Maybe you'll come to another conclusion. So he told the Pinchas Menachem, the Rebbe said like this, that when the Rambam wrote his remedies, he's not just talking about physical remedies. The whole system of health is also a spiritual system of health. And that system never changed. The question is how aligned we are today, and if every spiritual remedy can be translated into a physical remedy as well. It says in Kiddush HaChodesh that the Bezdin, even if they define Rish Chodesh in the wrong day, it's still Rish Chodesh. So he said, it seems like a joke. Rish Chodesh is a scientific fact. When the sun and the moon are aligned, and therefore we don't see the moon. If it's 2 days earlier or 2 days later, it's not Rish Chodesh. Don't tell me it's Rish Chodesh. Tell me Rish Chodesh is fictional and you don't care about the real Rish Chodesh. So most people would say that. Halacha doesn't care. We have systems. I don't need it to be real. If it's real, good. If not, it's good. But there's something off about that. So he said, Kiddush HaChodesh doesn't begin in the physical sun and moon. Kiddush HaChodesh begins in the spiritual sun and the spiritual moon. Sometimes we're zoicha that the spiritual alignment is expressed in astronomy. Sometimes the universe is not aligned and the spiritual moiled is not the physical moiled. Sometimes there's a seamless flow between your spiritual state of consciousness and your physical state of consciousness. And sometimes there's dissonance. We call it illness. You typhus ibnuchem. The birth of a new moon means there's a lot.
I hear it. But
okay. There was a Yid I knew. He was a big vir. His name was Gerari. So people would go to him for loans a lot. So you would tell him what you need. He would go, ah! He would scream, ah! So people would repeat. So he said, Herzechein. Azechein ist zum ersten Mal, Herzechein ist zum zweiten Mal. If I didn't hear it the first time, I didn't hear it the second time. Okay, so this is Shimon. This is all an explanation of Shimon. Then there's Levi, and Be'ezer Hashem tomorrow morning, 7:45, we'll continue to Yehudah, and I should say Bli Neder. Everybody have a beautiful day. Thank you for coming to the rescue.
Huh? How do I join the WhatsApp group? To get messages.
Yeah. So send it to me and I'll send it to the guy. 917-279-7579.
Is Yesh for
917.
279-7579. Just send a message and say subscribe. I'll forward it.
Yesh from Yesh, is that some Parsha?
No. Yesh Miyesh is just the developmental process of existence. Something from something.
But I thought that everything at every moment was in Yesh Miyayin.
You're right. We create Yesh Miyesh. You're right.
But is our Yesh from Yesh real?
That's true. In that sense, you're right.
Because I learned with my son last night at Rambam that he uses this lashon of Yesh Miyesh.
Yeah.
So from our perception,
Right.
we have a Yesh
Right.
Miyesh.
Right.
That's it.
We take lumber and we turn it into a table.
So does the concept of Simpson Parsha, can you speak in those terms? That there's a tzimtzum that we say that God only sort of say went so far, and then we have a chalik which we operate in, which is not informed in the same way that tzimtzum is not pshuto. I don't understand. Is there an interaction between the concept of Yesh Miyayin, which means that it's ongoing, right?
Oh, that's what you mean. That's a good question.
I mean, I'm trying to understand it in terms of that.
That's a good question.
So what do you have a response to?
I have to think about it.
But I mean, if you're looking at it from
I
that
understand.
perspective versus, okay. So Bli Neder, I'll come back to that.
Be'ezer Hashem, yeah.
So that you qualify Yesh Miyesh by saying
Yeah.
if there is a tzimtzum that is lo k'pshuto, we would say what? We would say that it's not. There was some kind of rectangle. Remember the chart that you
Right.
before?
Yeah.
So that ray of the sun
Right.
doesn't enter. That's lo k'pshuto.
Right.
That would be Yesh Miyesh.
Right.
Our perception of it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Pleasure to have
Thanks
you.
for the show.
Thank you so much.
Great class.
Such a deep thought that a real identity has to probably only be revealed through trauma. It's that AI.
The trauma reveals the real identity.
It's murder. This makes so much sense. I just thought about a different thought. The scientists trying to find a theory of everything, a string theory, which can explain all the physical phenomena. I think they're gonna fail. You know why? Because they think everything is consciousness. Because they're looking in the wrong place. Because just like you said, the body and the soul. The soul knows everything, all the scores and everything. So the body is just a physical manifestation of soul illness or soul trauma. So the theory of everything probably cannot be even done unless people go into consciousness first.
Right. Right.
It looks like it's
Looking in the wrong place, you say.
looking in the wrong place.
Right.
What's the consciousness of the atom? What's the consciousness of the...
Right.
Look, if you would look everything that way, that might be the real finest thing.
Right.
But other way around, this looks like it's
Right.
futile.
Right.
Well, it's a amazing thought.
Yeah.
That identity you can see only through trauma.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Identity,
immediately
you see how it gets from its brokenness. You could see it.
That's how I...
Something broke.
Right. So that's why I brought AI.
Yeah, beautiful.
Because it's like... Yeah, that was a distinction. for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. AI, yeah. Very good.
There is a beautiful AI now. You can try it. It's like a Google. It's a gorgeous AI. It's just yesterday was valued at $29 billion. It's a new company called Chat.
Yeah,
Chat
somebody sent it to me.
GBT.
Yeah.
I asked him about Judaism,
unbelievable.
all the
I
questions
saw.
about Yiddishkeit, everything.
Unbelievable.
In Russian, in Hebrew, in English.
Incredible, huh?
Phenomenal. But one thing it will tell you always, like if you ask a question, something like prerogative, it said, I have no emotions. I can only give you a knowledge or information. So it's truthful about
Wow.
itself.
Limitations.
Limitations.
No emotions. Ah,
But it's,
unless we'll program emotions, no?
but you can fake it. You
could fake
trauma.
it,
You
yeah.
can fake it. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't
Right,
know
you could
this
fake
much."
emotions, yeah.
You can fake it.
But it's not the emotion.
It's not the real thing because he will not. This guy will not have a trauma
Right.
unless they start infusing trauma.
Unless they traumatize it.
The traumatize it, then it can actually probably.
Thank you for your comment. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful comment about how the words won't. It's important.
I know it's okay. Unfortunately, from both sides of the situation.
We're all in the same boat.
By now I'm not complaining. So. There is a respect and love, right?
Respect and love, yeah.
So I don't know how to work on love, right? Like if I
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
if I help you, if I start bringing you tea, coffee,
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
know,
yeah.
you know, like up in the if I drive you to shul every day,
Yeah.
I'm gonna love you.
Yeah.
The same about my wife, my children by itself because you put so much effort. So all Rabbi says respect, important to respect. I believe the problem is respect. I cannot work on it. There is no tools. If you maybe you have to. You're a very smart person.
You want to know what are the tools to work on
If there is one,
respect?
I believe there is no such thing.
I think the tools to work on respect is when we connect to people who trigger within us respect. I think that's how we work on respect.
So not to, let's say I want a certain rabbi who write book, but very important to respect. I've never done it, but I want to text you. Can you please take me to the airport? Text him. You'll say like, said why? Because like, can you work on yourself that you would start respecting me? Because if I would be Rosh Yeshiva or kosher person, of course he would take. Basically, bottom line, why you don't want to take me to the airport? Because you don't respect me enough. It's okay, like it's normal. So can you work on yourself? Okay, wow. For a year, for 5 years, it's like, I want to take Alex to airport because of course I love.
I respect him.
Love you can work. If you're really involved
Right.
in my life, I'm sure like you, the people that you help in the life and you want to take
Right.
them to airport because you love. But in respect, so how do I work on my respect? Person I feel like
I have to think about it. I have to think about it. I hear you.
for love everybody. Everybody say important to respect. Important to respect. Okay, important. It's important to have parnusa. I know.
You want to know how?
Maybe that too. It's about integration. Integration.
Integration.
But there is probably we're talking about psychedelics, right? No?
No, breathing, EMDR,
Okay.
ETF, meditation.
My teacher, who like basically was genius, he was using hypnosis. And
Hypnosis, yeah.
after like a group hypnosis, he would tell, never ask anyone any questions, don't mix anyone's garden.
Right.
It's your business. So when I came from his workshop, I look at some person and I feel very strange. Like I don't know, I can't explain it. And when I felt that I always hated the guy. Each time I look, he's very nice.
I hear you.
He's on time, he's right, like a perfect guy. And perfect closing, perfect, all this stuff. I looked at him and I thought myself that
You don't like him.
no, first time I thought that I have no animosity.
I'm just going to shut. Yeah, well, I see.
So basically, if you do beautiful work in therapy, there's no integration. You forgot you had a problem. Like if you had physical pain, you're suffering, and then 2-3 months later,